Everyone listening to this next session of WCEG Network. I'm Reverend Diane Dougherty, and I'm thrilled to have you with us today to hear about this wonderful politician. Wendy Davis is going to be with us. Take a minute to watch us on your smart TV. If you can, YouTube, WCEG Network. My partner and I, Demetra Chapman, interview activists and various people that work to expand democracy in our city, in our state, and in our nation. And today we are listening to someone who is going to expand democracy in our state, Wendy Davis. You're listening to the Worldwide Community Empowerment Group. And because our goal is to speak life into the community, get ready to experience that life. And if you're on Facebook, go ahead and like us. Follow us on Twitter. We're even on Instagram at WCEG_talk_radio and at WCEG Network. For a disclaimer, the topics and the opinions of the hosts and the guests of this show are not those of WCEG Network. So we thank you for your continued support and welcome Wendy Davis.
Thank you so much, Reverend Diane. I'm so excited to be with you. And what an exciting group to be a part of, Community Empowerment Group, and it's worldwide. I couldn't be in with people who shared my values more fully. So I'm looking forward to this exciting conversation.
Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about you. This is what Vinny, your campaign, sent me. It said that you were, your roots are in Georgia Northwest, and you go back 5 generations. Yeah. So the service your family has given to the state of Georgia runs deep. You grew up during very tough times, not just with you, but with many people in North Georgia, which is really true. And as I was reading your bio, I said, oh, she's a navigator of experience.
I love that phrase. That's beautiful.
And your particular themes, as I went through the biography, are veterans, baseball, Rome City Commission, and good governance.
Yes, ma'am.
At the end of your bio, it says, you know that good ideas don't come from Washington, that solutions to complex problems come from the people in our communities, that we can get a lot of members of Congress, that we could get a whole lot done with members of Congress if they would stop making spectacles of themselves and just spend time looking out for the United States. And I think that is why you stepped up and took this opportunity. Wendy is running for the 14th district, the U.S. House, and she is running against probably Marjorie Taylor Green. So we expect to hear a lot about her platform. So Wendy, you're on. What's your platform?
Well, thank you so much, Reverend Diane. That's a pretty broad question, but let me just first of all, again, thank you, and thank you for this opportunity. I have had 30 years of a career of engaging with regular people, trying to get them to be full participants in our democracy, from trying to get people engaged to vote for particular candidates or just trying to get them engaged to vote, working on voter protection issues, connecting elected officials to their constituents, connecting progressive organizations to their members. And as a city commissioner, my biggest reason for running was because I felt like my neighbors and I were very disconnected from what our city was doing. I tried to find other people to run. when we had an uncontested election. The next go round, I was like, competitive elections are good for our democracy. And folks turned the tables on me and said, if you care about it so much, why don't you run? And so I did. And I've served 8 years, and I have loved being a city commissioner. For folks who don't know, in Georgia, most of our city elections are nonpartisan. And you would normally think of it as like city council, but in Rome, we call it city commission. And it has been a fantastic opportunity to really make a big difference, to make a change in terms of how trying to connect people with what we're doing, trying to get the voice of the people in with our government and at the local level actions. And I feel like I've had a lot of success. And as you read from my bio, no one group of people has all the right ideas. Just because a city has been doing things a certain way doesn't mean they need to keep doing it that way. Maybe we need to make change. Maybe we need to update or upgrade. I'm someone who's about trying some new things, but also making sure I'm asking tough questions. And I think that sort of reputation of being someone who is responsive and accessible and who's seeking to bring different voices to the table to make sure we're thinking big about the future of our community, those are the exact kind of leadership skills that are needed in Washington. And that's what I intend to take. And it's a little bit of a change. I think most people think of a member of Congress as being one of 435 people who are up there fussing and fighting and trying to say we're right and you're wrong. And I think we're a little out of skew. I think we need to have a little bit more of listening and a little bit more of actually digging in and finding solutions to problems. You mentioned, let me say quickly, the baseball part. I've been a baseball fan since I was a little girl, and I had the opportunity to be a leader in the effort to bring minor league baseball to Rome. And having professional baseball in town, we did it right here in Rome. We had an election about building a stadium, and I was one of the people who helped make sure that measure passed. And this year will be our 19th season of minor league baseball. And it's not just fun because I love baseball. It's a great economic development opportunity for our community. And it's a great place for the community to gather. It's safe for kids. Adults can go and have a beer and have fun and have a date. Grandparents can come and know, hey, it might get a little hot, but it's a lot of fun. So it's been a great opportunity.
Thrilling.
Here in Rome. Yeah. And
you know, didn't they used to go to Florida? Didn't they used to go to Florida?
Well, there's Florida, there's spring training. So baseball is a little different. We all know the big Braves, right? Who now play out in Cobb County. But there are 4 teams below in the minor leagues before you get to the major leagues where the big Braves are. And so we've had the first level. It was low class A. When they just redid the minor leagues, we're now high class A. So we're the second tier. So if they do well enough in Rome, they'll move up to Mississippi now. That team used to be in Greenville, and then they'll move up to Gwinnett, which is AAA. And then if they really have it going on, they'll make the big leagues. But it's so much fun. It's affordable family fun. And it's the kind of thing that can happen in a community if you're bringing people together around a new idea.
I love it.
Yeah.
I want to, I really appreciate that story and the effort that it took to bring that gift to the city itself. Could you talk a little bit about the job growth that you brought during the years you were in the council, and who benefited from that job growth?
Sure. We are in an unusual situation in Northwest Georgia, and folks will find it a similar tune in a lot of areas. We were a textile community all through here.
That's right.
Right. And as the textile industry moved offshore, really, that's the reality. We still need socks and blue jeans. We're just not making them here anymore. The communities had to pivot. Our community was pretty forward thinking and moved into some other areas. We actually, Rome is the the USA headquarters for Pirelli. And we have a very innovative tire manufacturing plant here. We make component parts for cars. There's a company here that makes all-terrain vehicles, you know, those little gator kind of things. And what we haven't had a lot of really large businesses come into the community in the 8 years I've been here, but I feel like I have really helped make fertile ground for our small businesses to continue to thrive. And I've learned a really interesting phrase that might be something you've talked about, economic gardening, right? And it's about tilling the soil and making sure that it's fertile.
That's right.
And in a lot of ways, I would rather us have 100 companies that have 10 employees than have one company that has 1,000 employees, because that company picks up and goes, and it has a horrible impact on the community. The other thing is the piece of the economy we're kind of missing here. We have a lot of doctors. We have a big healthcare center here in Rome, and we have 4 colleges. So we have a lot of college professors, and we have a lot of service industry jobs, like most communities that have some tourism. But we're missing that sort of middle level of jobs, and we lose a lot of our young people. They grow up and leave, or the college kids leave. Like, I went to school at Berry College, and I never thought I'd be working here in Rome. It just wasn't like on my radar screen until I actually ended up going back and working for the college, which is what brought me back to Rome. But these small businesses, just think about it. If you have a company that has 10 jobs, probably 4 or 5 of those jobs are for college graduates, right? A job that you can grow and develop in, rather than just a warehouse job or something like that. So I think that it helps, encouraging those small businesses helps us have a stronger base for our economy, and also helps us attract young people back to Rome.
I think that's really a very important concept, and I hope people listen to this over and over again. My big thing is wages. Yes. With a lot of small businesses, the wages can be higher if they're good businesses.
Yeah, they have more flexibility, right? And the other thing is, I will say very positively about the economic development work we do here in this community. Before we offer someone a big incentive package to come, which you know happens in all these communities, we make sure that they offer a good wage and benefits before we'll even talk to them about any incentives. And we do.
That's worth listening to this. It's worth listening to this just to hear it.
And we also make sure, like, if a company is a big polluter, like, we let them go on somewhere else, right? So we're trying to have really good standards for what we do when we're taking community resources to encourage a company to come. And we've been very blessed. We have a lot of companies here who are great citizens and a big part of our community. And we don't just give away the farm because somebody came and smiled and said, we want to bring some jobs, right? And I think that's smart. But one of the things I've found working, I've worked around government and in different levels of government, but here at the city, I've learned so much about what it takes to make a city run day in, day out. How clean water doesn't just happen, folks. You might turn on the tap and you expect it to be there, or flush and expect it to go away. But it's a lot of work and a lot of science that goes into that clean water, and it's very important. Similarly, there are a lot of local regulations. And one of the things I've tried to do is say, now, is there a health and safety reason that we have this obstacle to a business opening? And if there isn't really a health and safety reason, but that's just the way it always was, they just had to come into the office, they can't do it online. I've tried to cut some of that red tape and make it easier for small businesses to open. And again, be encouraging, have that culture of, we want you in Rome. We're looking for new and exciting and innovative entrepreneurs.
I love it. Okay, so you have 62% Black, our white population, and 32% other population. Mm-hmm. Black is 26%. And the poverty rate in the area is 25% of that community.
Way too high. Yes, ma'am.
So I noticed that there's a new technical college going up there, or has it been there for a while?
Oh, it has been a very long time. Yeah, the technical college, and we also have a community college. It used to be a junior college, Georgia Highlands College, and they do a fantastic job of helping people who need to transform their lives, who might be adults, right, to go back to school and get a degree to help them. One of the programs that we have in Georgia that's run through the technical college, to me, is so innovative. It's called Quick Start Program, excuse me. And a company, yes, this is a government school, right? It's a part of the adult and technical colleges of Georgia, right? But a company will come in, like just say when Pirelli came in, and they will adapt a class and train people exactly for that equipment at that plant, right? So it is very much tied to the business and tied to, if you do this class, you can have a job over here, and it's a good job. And I think they are really doing a fabulous job transforming lives and getting people the training to change their lives and helping young people. I think we have done a disservice to a generation, if not two generations of young people, creating this false dichotomy of, you know, college-bound people are the smart ones and everybody else are not as smart. And the reality is you got to be really smart to be a plumber, right? And so many of these technical jobs that don't require a 4-year degree are fantastic jobs that can't be outsourced and or make good living for people. And so I think the better course is what you're seeing now. We have a lot of college and career academies where we're exposing all our students to these different job opportunities and making those learning opportunities fit that. So again, it's not that we don't want them reading Shakespeare, right? It's that we'd love for all of them to be able to code if they want to learn how to code, right? We have 16-year-olds working on engineering skills right now in my community. And it doesn't mean you have to, you know, go to tech and get a 4-year degree to work at one of these companies doing this high-tech manufacturing. So we want, I think there are different paths to success and different paths to happiness. And we need to be making sure that we're removing obstacles for our communities to thrive and encouraging people and giving them those access to resources. And that's one of the things, go ahead.
What are you doing for education? Because the poverty rate, the education in the areas where there's the highest amount of poverty has the highest gap. So is that your responsibility, or is that the state's responsibility? Whose responsibility is it?
So I'm going to give an answer that might be a little surprising. It's all of our responsibilities, right? Different pieces of that have different elements of it. And there are some people who think the federal government should have no role in it, right? You've heard these people saying we should get rid of the federal Department of Education. I disagree with that idea. Similarly, the state has a role, and they have a huge role in funding. And in my mind, they have neglected that role for the last 20-something years. They've been cutting the mandated by our own law amount they're supposed to send every school. And they're just now getting back where they're doing that baseline. But there's so much more we need to do. And I want to share.
Baseline is from 1985.
Right. I mean, that's a long time ago. We're doing something really exciting here, which I think is a great example of the kind of work I love. It's a collaborative work. Our city schools have offered the space, and Berry College has a long history of having outstanding early childhood education programs, including their own laboratory school and community groups. We have a South Rome Alliance, and they have put together a 3-year-old program. It's the South Rome Early Learning Center at Anna K. Davey, and it's a collaborative program. Berry provides the teachers and the teaching materials, right? The pedagogy, and the city schools provide the space, and community groups help fill the funding gaps. And it's a program for 3-year-olds. And it has been so outstanding. You would not believe how terrific these kids are. And the exciting thing about it is we're watching as they go up the ladder in their education. And you find that from that 3-year-old experience, when they go into a classroom with the pre-K, right, the 4-year-olds, they bring the kids up to them, right? Instead of, we always talk about in public schools too often, we teach to the least common denominator, where these kids are magnets pulling other kids up. And we're going to see that the whole way through. And you've probably seen it, Reverend, that if we aren't getting these kids early, it is so hard to make up that gap. And we've got to be cradle to grave people learning. And it starts with making sure our parents know how to be engaged. I think that's another exciting thing that this 3-year-old program does, is the parents have to commit to being involved in a certain number of their programs, and they're happy to do it. I think we've got to.
So exciting. Well, listen, moving right along, I listened to you on this for hours, and I'm so excited about Rome, Georgia, and I hope the community continues that trajectory so that the poverty rate in Rome lessens every year. Another interesting part about Rome was that just shocked me was the number of, there are more women. No, wait a minute. No, there's an equal number of men and women that own their own homes. And
Yes.
46% of Rome has a population of home owners. They're not renters. And women have more education than men in all areas. But men earn more than women in all areas.
Shock, not. I wish that was a shocking statistic. That's something we've still got to work on. You know, one of the things that I don't think we have fully wrapped our arms around, or our heads around, or our mouths around about the pandemic is how much it has hurt women.
That's right.
I heard a statistic that said it might take us 20 years before we are back to the number of women in the workforce that we were in February of 2020. And I hope that is wrong, because I hope more people will agree, Reverend, with you and I, that we've got to solve our childcare crisis. We have to be able to provide opportunities where people can safely and reasonably put their children somewhere where their children are going to thrive, right, while they're at work. We have to get more businesses who will have childcare right there in their workplace, right? We have seen over and over again how that makes workers more productive, which is good for their business. It's better for the kids. It's there's so much that we need to do, and it's really ridiculous that we're behind so many other industrialized nations in terms of family leave. I mean, all kinds of issues. But just think about, we haven't really thought about, we've almost 1 million people who have died during the pandemic. That's almost 1 million people who were probably in the workforce, no longer in the workforce. So think of all those families. Someone in that family was caregiving to that person who was sick, right? And that's not even adding in the people who were sick that didn't die. And think about most, now in Atlanta, there are some bigger chain kind of childcare places, but in Rome, they're all small businesses, and almost all woman-run small businesses. So when everything shut down, those are kind of undercapitalized small businesses too. So it was hard for their business to survive the pandemic, much less than we did start sending kids back. Everybody didn't send their kid back because they were scared. You know, we still have health concerns about it. So there's just these underlying problems that we haven't acknowledged. We have too many people saying, well, people are just lazy and we have to stop the giveaways and get them back to work. It's a really complicated set of factors that are affecting our situation with the workforce. And we need to acknowledge it, and we need to work to find solutions so we can get people back to work in a way that makes sense for their family.
I believe. Now, moving on to District 14, you're leaving Rome. You're leaving it in a good place, and hopefully there will be leadership that continues this. What was impressive to me was that your leadership as a Democrat, you had to work with a number of Republicans, and you made it work. How did you do it?
Because I start from the premise of we're all neighbors, right? It's not an us, them, it's a we, right? We're in this together. Everybody brings to the table a different set of experiences. And I think those different set of experiences can teach us all something. So I've sometimes been someone who is a little pushy, right? I know we try not to use pushy for girls, but I'm somebody who's going to say why and why are we doing that, and ask tough questions, and let's try something new. And particularly if things aren't working, right? Let's try something new. But we have to recognize that, I mean, particularly in communities like mine, most of the people in leadership are Republicans, but it's not about whether they're a Republican or a Democrat or a conservative or progressive. It's about let's find common ground for us to all move forward as a community. Nobody wants dirty water. Everybody wants clean water. What are we doing to make sure that our city has the resources to make sure that we can get clean water? What are we doing in a broader way to make sure that the water sources are not polluted? Right? These are all not easy bumper sticker answer questions, but they're questions that you need to bring people with different sets of experiences to the table to get the best ideas. So Reverend, like if you had an idea that you brought and said the city needs this, it used to be that we would just say yes or no. And in my mind, I tried to make it be like, if somebody has an idea, somebody else has a way to make that idea better. And the third person might see how we can make it even better. So it's that kind of collaborative leadership that I've done here at the city that I want to bring to Congress. Too often it's like, if this is a Republican idea, all the Democrats are against it. Or if it's a Democrat idea, the Republicans say it's evil, right? We've got to stop that. We're Americans, we're neighbors. We have problems that we need to find solutions to. And I'm telling you, I'm going to be a different kind of member of Congress. Most people want to go up to Washington and be a part of, sort of that fussing and fighting and try to fix all of that. I see the strongest thing a member of Congress can do is what they do in the district. And that's where I'm going to put my focus. So let's just talk about job training. There are millions of dollars in job training resources that the federal government has appropriated. Did you know that where that money lands in the regional commissions in every community, that commission's job is not to do the training. Their job is to make sure if the training is done, the money is spent in the way that meets all the standards, right? It's an accounting role. So who is out there saying, hey, there's great training opportunity here? It's nobody's job to say that. Well, I think a member of Congress can say, hey, there's great job training opportunities over here, and they're free to you to be trained. And hey, there are all these businesses hiring good jobs with great wages if you get that training. And then to the employers, I met a company down in Polk County last week. They have 200 job openings, right? And they're going, hey, we need workers. A member of Congress has a megaphone. There are members of Congress that have job fairs, right? I'm going to have job fairs. I'm going to have training fairs. I'm going to have grant writing opportunities. So like people who do shelter work and work with people in domestic violence, they have very small budgets and they have all that they can say grace over with the staff they have. I'm going to make sure that my team is pointing out those grants. There's so much money out there, but you don't know it's there, right? So I'm going to help people find those resources and make sure that the end of the job isn't the vote. The end of the job is making sure that priority that was voted on and passed the House and hopefully passed the Senate actually accomplishes what we wanted it to accomplish.
That's delicious. That's delicious. Now let's
Thank you.
talk a little bit about District 14.
Okay.
In District 14, there are 3 major cities, Rome, Calhoun, and Dalton, all of which were, well, Calhoun and Dalton were the textile communities. But what shocked me was 12 counties. The
Well,
average age is 38.
wow.
77% is white. 77%. And the population's 34,000.
Yes.
Marjorie
So,
Taylor Green got 300,000 votes. And so within this district, what is your strategy to be a winner as a Democrat in a 77% all white, probably Republican district?
well, that's a great question. So, and I believe you may be looking at the figures from the district where she got elected. And the redrawn map is a little bit different. It only has 10 counties. We lost 2 of the counties.
Oh,
Pickens and Harrelson.
this was from the census.
Yeah, so Pickens and Harrelson are not in the district under the new map, but they have added 51,000 voters from Cobb County. And so there are 2 very important cities there too, Powder Springs and Austell. And it's the edge of Mableton and a little bit in the Mackland area, that sort of unincorporated Cobb County. So those 51,000 voters are going to have a huge impact on this district. It's a very strong Democratic area, but I will tell you, those folks are not happy about being added to this district because in their mind, all my neighbors are like Marjorie Taylor Green. So first of all, let me say Marjorie Taylor Green is from Metro Atlanta. She's not from Rome. I made Rome such an attractive place that she decided to move here when she carpetbagged over here in 2020. But I think that it is a tough district on paper. It's very Republican. So how does a Democrat like me, I've been an activist and leader in the party for 30 years. How do I get elected? Well, I'll tell you how. It's a combination of things. First of all, I know a lot about campaigning and I know a lot about getting our folks excited. And our folks have not had a reason to be excited about a congressional candidate in 20 years in this area. We just haven't had the right candidates running or the right conditions. So I can get our side very excited. The Republican side is a mess right now. And I will tell you that when she was elected in 2020, it wasn't because she was an outrageous QAnon celebrity that she is now. She was elected out of a primary that had 8 people all running saying the same 4 things. She said it most passionately, I think, of the 8 of them. And also she didn't have to work a day job. She says she's a part of her business, of her family business, but she campaigned full time. And the guys who were running all had day jobs, including the guy she got into the runoff with. He's literally a brain surgeon, and he was still operating as a neurosurgeon, right? As well as campaigning sort of on the side. So I don't want people to think that 300,000 people in this community, in this corner of the state, thought she was amazing. There are that many people who are Republicans, and our Democratic candidate, oh, I lost you, Pastor. I hope this is still going for me. Our Democratic candidate had some family problems and had to drop out of the race. And it was so late in the race that the Secretary of State was able to decide that we couldn't replace him. So, but I feel like her actions, particularly those actions of late where she went and spoke at a white supremacist conference, and then she has been frankly acting like she was auditioning for Russian TV. She voted against sending humanitarian relief or military relief to Ukraine. She said they're going to lose anyway. Why should we spend American money propping them up? You see now why we need to be supporting Ukraine. It's turning into genocide. And people are tired of it. People see that the only thing she brings is capacity to make headlines. And she creates conflict everywhere she goes. It seems like she enjoys sowing chaos. And people are tired of that. Republicans are tired of that. But what we have to have is we have to have a candidate who can speak to those Republicans honestly, enthusiastically, earnestly, and make a difference and let them see that I care about them and I'm going to serve them just like I'm going to serve someone who's been an activist with me in the Democratic Party for 30 years. All right. I am not sure what is gonna keep talking. I'm excited about this opportunity. May 24th is the primary. And it's very important that people participate in the primary. A lot of times folks think that if they're not active partisans, they don't need to participate in the primary. Reverend, are you back? You're muted still, dear.
It's a technical problem.
Ah, okay. You're
It
back.
was, yeah, it was the internet Grinch.
Ah, okay. I kept talking pretty much through.
Well, what I would like, I would like to know more about, in terms of your own presentation. Could you kindly talk about the big culture war issues and how, when they are presented to you, how do you handle some of those with people from from a direction that is not yours? Because you sound like you're quite progressive. But if you want to get a Republican or a conservative to vote for you, how do you approach certain culture wars? And I won't name them. I'll let you pick your own.
Sure.
Important one.
So first of all, that's a great question. But first of all, most people aren't asking me about those questions, right? It's reporters who ask me about those questions more than regular voters, right? I had I had a sit down with a local paper, and he just wanted to talk about guns, and he wanted to talk about guns, and he wanted to talk about guns, and I'm like, I really don't have a lot to say about guns. I'm not taking them away, and I understand why our neighbors have a culture of gun ownership, and that it's a part in many families of their family heritage, and there are areas of our community that have security concerns that aren't close to police coming, right? And so let's talk about something else that really is concerning to our neighbors. What I try to do when it's regular voters that I'm talking to is I try to keep my mouth shut and listen a minute, and then find a way to find some common ground, right? So if somebody wants to talk about abortion and they happen to feel differently about it than I do, and they think it's the government's role to tell women that they have to carry their pregnancy to term no matter the situation, I try to listen in a way that shows that I'm really listening to them. And then I try to turn the conversation to something like, let's talk about how awful it is that we're the only industrialized nation where the maternal mortality rate is increasing. The rest of the world, it's going down. And Georgia is number 2 in women dying in childbirth in this country. That's something we can fix. That's something we can solve. And that's something we can agree upon. And it's actually something that isn't even going to take millions of dollars to fix that problem, right? It's going to take listening to women. And so then when you get to things like what they're trying to do in the schools, again, I want to listen, but I'm not going to be for banning books. We're not teaching critical race theory. to our elementary school kids or our high school kids. Those are solutions looking for a problem. And it's the right trying to stir people up. Anger and hate and fear are easy things to sell. It doesn't make me happy to say that, right? And it seems that there are people who have a business, if you will, of inflaming those conflicts and those divisions. I am somebody who doesn't want to play that game, even from the left, right? I am trying really hard. It makes it hard sometimes. I want to shout that the dreadful things about what she's doing. I want to say what I really think about her, but that's not going to get us anywhere. What I want to make sure is that people know that the action she's doing and the vote she's making and the meanness and ugliness she's perpetuating is not making any progress for our community. It's not solving any of our problems. And I'm not going to engage in that meanness, but I am going to work to solve problems. And maybe that good government message is not sexy, but it's a sharp contrast to what she offers. And I think that it's something that can resonate with my neighbors. And I talk with people who are really conservative. And if we were taking a test, I'd be over here and they'd be over there, but we can listen to each other and we have common concerns. We're all neighbors and we rise and fall by how our neighbors are able to live their lives. So it's my theme is Wendy for us, right? I'm trying to talk about how we've got to be together to make progress. And that's why I'm a progressive, right? I'm trying to move forward. We can't go backwards. We shouldn't go backwards, right? We need to learn from the past and move forward. And I think doing that, understanding diversity as a strength and bringing different voices to the table makes us stronger, gives us better solutions, lets us be more creative. And I think that's going to help us all thrive.
That's why I like you.
Thank you.
I agree. I've tried to do the same thing. I understand more about culture than I ever have. And I appreciate people's direction and where they're coming from. But one of the major blind spots has to do with education. And I think, especially here in Georgia, we have a community of people that have been trained and they've lived in little isolated enclaves. And they love it. You learn to love your enclave. You learn to love that comfortableness. So when someone else enters in, and if we're talking about job growth and opportunity, we're also talking about more and different diversity that's entering into the society itself. And that sparks tremendous fear of. I think you have an edge on the on that understanding that fear is fear walks through communities, and you also have an ability not just to, I love how you said you listen, you just listen to it and you acknowledge it. And I think sometimes when people understand the fear that they have and you walk them through the consequences of that fear, they'll say, well, I don't want that.
Right. It's people are offering them bumper sticker solutions, right? They're ginning up their fear. And then they're saying, here's this one simple thing that'll fix what you're scared of. There are a few simple solutions in the world. But I understand that change is frightening. I understand that so many people are feeling left behind and left out and unheard. It makes sense that having somebody saying, boy, howdy, I'm going to go give it to them because we're mad. I understand how that's appealing, right? But is it appealing if it doesn't actually produce something? And I think that's the tipping point we're at. Yes, they wanted somebody to go be their advocate, and they're okay that she was mean and loud, because maybe we need a little mean and loud. Well, I'm going to be loud about the right things. I'm not going to go pick a fight for the sake of picking a fight. But I'm telling you, I'm tough. I seem really nice and sweet, but I'm tough, and I am dedicated to making our communities stronger. I'm not going to let us be fourth or fifth tier. I'm not going to let everybody be in line ahead of us when it comes to resources being handed out. I am not going to let our veterans continue to take a back seat because we don't have time to fix the VA because it's too big. By golly, we do have time to fix the VA. We have the resources to fix the VA. And I'm going to be somebody standing there all day, every day saying, take care of our veterans. Take care of our veterans. Oh yeah, and take care of our veterans, by golly, because it's beyond time for us to do that. And each of those people and all of their families, they all offer their very lives for our freedoms. And it's got to be a priority.
Can you tell me a little bit more about your initiative for getting hospitals back into Rome? Because I know that area was just devastated with the closing, wasn't it, of 8 hospitals in not just Rome, but throughout the North Georgia?
Yeah, so there are a lot of hospitals that have closed across rural Georgia. We actually haven't lost any of our traditional hospitals in Rome. We have 2 hospitals and they're thriving. What we lost in Rome that was a huge blow was the state mental health hospital. So the governor decided to close rather than fixing them, because there was a federal lawsuit that said the patients weren't receiving appropriate care. Rather than solving the complicated problem of properly resourcing those hospitals, one of our governors decided to close the hospitals. And he said those people would get treated in their home setting, which was a better place than being institutionalized, which for many people, it would have been a better place if the resources had been there. But who says that somebody with those extreme mental health issues that people had before they went into a hospital, who says that anybody in their family has the capacity to handle those problems, right? Who says they even have a family member willing to take them in? So what are the consequences? The consequences across the state, our homelessness has exploded. We have jails, our jail here in Floyd County, we keep having to have special tax projects to expand the medical facilities and the mental health facilities in our jail, right? We have created a different set of problems. Instead of fixing a very big problem that was complicated to fix, they said, oh, we'll take care of that, we'll just close it. So it wasn't the right move then. We still have a problem. I mean, we could spend several hours talking about the lack of access to mental health care that folks have. But the reality is it's time to fix it. It's time to solve it. It's time for people to understand that our lack of care for people with mental health issues has exacerbated the addiction problem, has exacerbated the opioid epidemic we have, right? Has exacerbated the suicide problem, right? Like all of these issues roll into each other. We have got to find places to start working to find solutions, or the problems are just going to get worse. And just putting your head in the sand and saying, well, just don't do drugs is not solving the problem, right?
Did you hear,
just take care of yourself better is not solving the problem.
Did you hear that the Mental Health Parity Act passed?
Yes.
166 to nothing.
That's right, because they finally started understanding that we have to have new solutions. But you also saw that it almost got derailed. But
yes.
The people trying to derail it were so outrageous that there was so much pushback on it. So finally, you see in the state legislature here in Georgia, folks coming together, they'd studied it. Who did they talk to? They talked to the experts in the subject, and they talked to families who were having the impact of not having the right resources. And shockingly, they said, we need to do something new and we need to do it now. So I'm delighted that they did. Again, I hope that what is on paper is a good solution gets put into action as a fantastic solution. I'm very encouraged by it.
I was in Pittsburgh in 1975, and in 1978 they closed the. It was not just a mental hospital; it was for veterans and for the homeless. They closed it down. The same thing happened. Everyone went to the streets in their little wheelchairs. Some of them lived behind gas stations. They had no place to go. It was so disconcerting. And the legislators had no empathy or compassion. So for the listeners, one of my deepest longings is for people to understand who you're voting for. How do you measure their empathy and compassion? And if they have none, don't vote for them. I don't care if they're Democrat or Republican.
Right.
Don't vote for them. Listen to who you're voting for.
I'm telling you, one of the most difficult nights of my 8 years as a city commissioner is our local law enforcement said that they were having so many complaints about homeless people being out in very public spaces, and they didn't have a law to do anything about it. So they asked us to pass a law to basically say you can sleep anywhere, just not here in Rome, right? And I could not believe that my colleagues, many of whom I adore and are dear friends, I was the only one who voted against that. I was the only one who stood up and said, we cannot criminalize not having a roof over your head. That is not a solution to this problem. And it was heartbreaking for me. But there are other cities around this country who have embraced finding solutions to homelessness, who have really put real resources and real creativity and real heart behind solving that problem. There are cities that have virtually eliminated homelessness among their veterans population because that's more politically palpable, right? But in my mind, if we can solve it for the veterans, we can use those same tools to solve it for anyone who is in a situation where they don't have shelter. And it's a huge priority. It breaks my heart to see not enough people understanding that this isn't a choice people made, like my choice to pick chocolate or strawberry ice cream, right? There is a horrible, vicious cycle of bad things that happened in their life that led them to that place. And they don't have the capacity to pull themselves up out of that hole just by themselves. And as a community, it is our responsibility. We are our brother and sisters keepers, and we have to take on those tasks. I mean, it doesn't fit everybody, but all of us in some way can have an impact. And I'm grateful for the work y'all do to bring these issues forward. And I am hopeful and encouraged that people will see that not only am I a woman with heart, but I'm a woman who tries to get big things done. And we should try having somebody represent Northwest Georgia who wants to accomplish things, not just make headlines.
Love it. Preach, sister. Preach. Just as a caveat, I worked at a gay church, and they had a homeless population that we fed twice a week. Wonderful people, most of them veterans. And there was a program in 2014. I don't know where the money came from, but they gathered up some of the veterans who talked to the veterans who talked to the veterans. And my favorite Joe comes back with a haircut. He was shaved. I didn't know who he was other than his big, bright blue, steely eyes. He said, "You don't know who I am, do you?" I mean, he was dressed, he had a shirt on, and he said, I'm 63 and I changed my life
Oh,
because of this opportunity. And so he would come to the homeless dinner and talk to people saying, you can be like me.
yeah.
And then they lost their funding. You cannot do this for 2 years and then put these people back out on the street. It has to be long-term, sustainable
Yes.
commitment. And that's what I think if people, all of us, many of us, every religion says the same thing. We take care of those who do not
The
have
least
the
of these.
resources. Yes.
The least of these.
Margin.
Yeah.
All right. Well, would you believe we've been talking an hour already?
I know. Thank you. I have really loved this.
I would
Reverend
like you
Diane.
to, I'd like to know your ideas for two things. First of all, what are the main things that you would like to accomplish within the year if you were part of the, if you got the, if you won the election? And then the second thing is, how can we help you?
Oh, great.
We can't vote for you.
Well, you know people, right? And you might know people who are in those 10 counties in Northwest Georgia, starting at the Tennessee line. The western boundary is Alabama, basically west of 75, down to Paulding County and into Powder Springs and Austell. So think if you know folks there and encourage them to vote in the primary on May 24th. Wendy Davis is my name. Wendy Davis for Us is my Facebook. All my other handles are just Wendy for Us, including my website, which is wendyforus.com. And so I'd love for folks to interact and connect and keep up with what they're doing. We need volunteers, we need donors. But what I want to get done, I am going to be, I hope to be heralded as a champion for veterans, not because I want to be heralded, but because I want to make an extreme difference in taking care of the veterans, starting in Northwest Georgia, but I want to fix the VA for all of our veterans. I don't think that's a one-year task, but I'm going to make a big difference in that first year. And then I also want to make sure that we have good collaborative leadership that's supporting what our local communities are doing. Both, I have, again, that city perspective, but the city and counties are doing amazing things. They need to make sure that Washington is not getting in their way. Same thing, the businesses in our community, the businesses we need to attract to our communities, they need support. I'm going to be a big cheerleader for Northwest Georgia. And I'm, again, going to make sure those resources come down. We get our piece of it. We're going to expand broadband. I don't want us to be 12th tier of the broadband expansion. I don't want us to be 20th tier of getting those electric vehicle chargers as that grid expands. I'm going to make sure we're not last in line anymore. And because our folks have invested in our nation and we need to get some benefit on our investment. And I plan to make sure that, that folks are heard and that their voices are reflected. Small town America is often forgotten because there's so much else that's happening in the big cities and a lot of the energy goes there. But small town America matters too. And I'm going to be a voice for that and say we're not anti-big cities. They're just a whole bunch of us and a whole bunch of big cities. And we've got to find a common ground to solve problems that help all Americans.
Perfect. Well, thank you all. And you've been listening to WCEG Take a Stand. I'm Reverend Diane Dougherty. We had the pleasure of listening to this wonderful, gifted woman who's running for the 14th district in Georgia. We ask everybody to re-listen to this, reach out, do what you have the power to do, because Georgia will become better when we all do what we can do. Thank you so much, Wendy. And with that, we'll sign off.
Thank you for the opportunity. I couldn't agree with you more, Reverend Diane. Thank you so much.
Goodbye. Have a wonderful week, everyone.